among all 22 defendants.
Henry King first met Albert Speer, one of the major defendants of the Nuremberg trials, at the Nuremberg prison in the late summer of 1946. King was interrogating Speer in connection with his role as the chairman of the Central Planning Board, the body that had supreme authority for the scheduling of German production and the allocation and development of raw materials.
Great defendants, as far as what your thoughts about them were. Did you think some of them were maybe got off too lightly? Maybe some were hung who should have been tossed in prison? Any thoughts along those lines?
Yes. Okay. Goering was an unrestricted Nazi. I mean, unreconstructed, yeah. He was, he thought Hitler was the greatest man that ever lived. He thought that the day would come when the Nazis would come back. That's one. Hess, I thought, was a non-entity at Nuremberg. He didn't play any role in it. You had the whiners like Keitel said, well, Hitler told me to do it. But that's what makes Hitler possible. Jodl said he was carrying out orders. But these were political generals as well as military generals, and they attended all the big planning conferences where Hitler was saying, I'm going to declare war against Poland regardless of provocation. I shall give a propagandistic cause for the war. Count Munner was would fit into any execution squad in the world. I mean, he's head of the Gestapo. He had a big scar on his face. He's the man who denied his signature. Frank was the head of the Munich, the Bavarian Bar Association. He was Hitler's lawyer. But he was consumed with ambition, and he lost sense of humanity. In other words, there's no, he wanted to, all he was thinking of was crawling up the ladder, and he had a lot of internal fights with Himmler's people. Frank's a sad story. He gave us 42 volumes of diaries, and then we read them into the record against him, and he was hung as a result. Ribbentrop was a weak sister, just a champagne salesman, and Hitler wanted a weak sister in the foreign ministry. Pretty shabby for a foreign minister for a country of the size and scope of Germany. Sauckel was a Gauleiter from Thuringia, and he was a tough guy. He'd been on submarines, I believe, out in the North Atlantic. He was a slave labor boss, a very brutal man. And the main thing about Sauckel was he said he had 12 children, and what were they going to do if he was hung, which didn't keep the court from hanging him. Sauckel blamed it all to Speer, and said that Speer should take the responsibility. Frick was Minister of Interior. He's a guy who established the rule of Hitler's law in Nazi Germany, the Nuremberg laws and all that, more of a mechanic who enforced Hitler's dicta, gave him whatever respectability they ever had, but a real bad actor. Stryker was a questionable case. He was a mean, nasty guy, the type that hangs around playgrounds and molests people. One of the things was that the court, I don't think, liked Stryker. He wasn't party to any of the killings. Even Hitler disengaged him from the party. He's a mean old, dirty old man. Then there was...
he was kind of the party ideologue, right?
Well, he was for early on, but then Hitler he didn't like Stryker because he didn't have any class or anything. He's just a vulgar old man. But Die Stürmer, which is the Nuremberg newspaper. Then you had Seyss-Inquart, who was the Governor General of Holland, Netherlands. And of course, he got nailed with all the crimes that they committed. He was an Austrian lawyer. Got nailed with all the crimes that the Nazis committed in Holland. He's the one who carried him out. He got the death sentence. Funk was a weak old man. He's the one who took the gold teeth from the dead as collateral for the Reichsbank, and Jackson called it the strangest collateral in history. Funk was a weak sister guy who did the bidding of the stronger ones in the Nazi hierarchy. Fritzsche should never have been there because he was a underling of Goebbels. They wanted somebody in the foreign ministry, and he was acquitted. Schack was sent to a concentration camp by Hitler, and he was acquitted. He was in a concentration camp, I believe, at the end of the war. Von Papen was a schemer and a scoundrel, but he didn't do any identifiable crimes during the Hitler regime because Hitler made him ambassador to Turkey, which at that time was Siberia for von Papen. Then, of course, you had Albert Speer, who was the one who said, I did it, I'm responsible. And the court liked that because he's the only one who said, Hitler's not here, I'm the one. So you have to keep in mind the court were human beings, they had feeling, and everybody else is in denial, and here's this guy who said, wow, I'm the one. And he had on a very close vote, he was given 20 years. Dönitz was an unreconstructed Nazi. The problem was that he was Hitler's successor. The problem we had was that Admiral Nimitz gave an affidavit saying that we had done some of the things that we're trying Dönitz on, but there were other things that we didn't do. Also, it's unlikely that any prosecution would ever let, or any court would ever let Dönitz off, who was the successor to Hitler. He's a real Nazi when I was there. Rader was the commander of the Nazi Navy. He sat in on some planning meetings and paid with a life sentence for that, where they planned the war. The meetings of November 3rd, November 1937, November 4th, and May 22nd, 1939, August 23rd, 1939. He sat in on all these meetings and listened to Hitler plan the war and all that, so we convicted him.